Kia ora. Welcome to edition 3 of Salmoscope. Here we're going to explore the fabled mouse ears of New Zealand and a wonderful pattern called the Sunken mouse. During mouse years, most of the fish we fish to and catch, we catch using regular methods of sight fishing using nymphs and dry flies. Many people make the mistake thinking that we fish with dry mouse patterns made of deer hair or foam. Sure, these do work in New Zealand, especially at night time, but during the day, not so effective. In my experience, if you're going to use dry patterns at night, the best ones are based on the Moorish versions. I like strong profile colours, as you can see here, like white and black. And these, when skimmed across the surface, fishing across and down, can bring dynamic strikes. An aspect of mouse ears that gets little consideration is the notion of the sunken mouse. These mice come onto the water at night time, some get waterlogged and slowly sink. Trout still feed avidly upon these during the day. So this concept led me to develop a sunken mouse pattern that's fished primarily upstream with an indicator, a lot like a nymph. In many ways it's a crossover between a nymph and a mouse, whatever you call that. This pattern can work extremely well on these overfed fish that can get particularly fussy during the day. Tying the sunken mouse is super easy, the materials are easy to find, and you can adapt upon it any way you see fit. The neat thing about this fly is it doesn't necessarily work just in mouse ears, it'll work in general seasons. And you know, as I've mentioned before, you can fish it upstream behind an indicator as you would a nymph, but also it doubles as a streamer, so multitasker here. When choosing the cross-cut rabbit, pay careful attention to the coloration that you're looking for. And as you can see here, I've included the black rabbit. Sometimes even bold colours can work on this pattern. Making a realistic tail is very easy. Just get some ultra chenille and burn the end. I'm starting off using 3-bar brown monocord, which is nice and strong. You want to tie this fly strong. I've got a wide gape hook in the vise, but you can choose a hook that suits you. And I've got a black tungsten bead. The size of the bead, again, you can choose to suit the size of the fly and the depth of water you want to fish. Next, we get the strip of grey foam, and we've made a hole in it. We slot this in over the eye, and then we tie it in on top, and then the underside. Make sure that this is tied in straight on the axis of the hook and tied in very firmly. As you can see, this form effectively looks like the mouse's eye. Adding the all-important super glue at this stage fixes the fly and makes it really robust and strong. Now I'm going to tie in the tail. In this case I'm using a fine strip of brown leather, but as I've mentioned before, you can use the ultra chenille that's burnt at the end. And get the cross-cut rabbit and tie it at the very back of the hook. Then, with hackle pliers, slowly wind the cross-cut rabbit forward, and you can see the form of the mouse's body taking shape. Winding cross-cut rabbit takes a little bit of practice to get used to. You can see how I'm flaring the fibres back as I wind. But once you've learnt how to tie with this, it's got lots of uses, especially for streamers. Now secure the end of the rabbit with secure turns and trim off. Now with some fine brown rubber legs, we're going to tie these in on each side. This adds a little bit of animation to the fly and looks a little bit like the legs. Impressionistic is the key. Now using the same cross-cut rabbit, we pluck some fibres out and dub in a collar. Interestingly, what I like to do is put the super glue on now, then dub the collar on top of that, whip finish, trim off the excess, and we have the completed sunken mouse. Just add water. The cross-cut rabbit, not only having the colour of the mouse, also has animation in the water. This combined with the tail, the legs and the eyes gives a really effective fly. In the recent 2020 mouse year, I've been using this articulated version, which is tied in much the same way. You're just connecting two hooks with a little bit of wire, as you can see, and instead of the bead, I'm using a tungsten sleeve that keels this fly. I'm using this more as a streamer, fishing it across and down, swinging it, casting it into backwaters and slow water. The results that I got on this one from the trout were just nothing shy of spectacular. As you can see, you not only have the animation of the rabbit fur, but you also have the animation of the articulation. It's important to note too that this looks a lot like a small bait fish as well, so it's a universal pattern. The quest for mouse-feeding fish often involve long walks through beautiful beach-clad valleys. And when you finally find a fish, wow, it's exciting and you really want to get it right.
Because we're probably going to see them from behind anyway, I think, aren't we? Probably not. Well, you sort of can. Yeah, but you'll know where he is approximately up there. No. Yes, indeed. There he is, just there, see? One more.
Some of these mousefish are so spectacular it becomes a spiritual experience, nature's beauty at its best, and to be respected, worshipped and released. And indeed, the sunken mouse became one of those flies that changed my life. I hope you enjoy using it too.